Hi, my name is Talmadge Peart. I'll be doing a historiographical presentation on American Lincoln's role in the Emancipation. So, for this presentation, I want to focus on two different books. The first book I would like to focus on is The Fiery Trial, Abraham Lincoln and American Slavery. This book was written by Eric Forner. A little bit about him is he was born in 1943 and he is alive to this present day. He got his PhD from the University of Columbia in 1969. He won a Pulitzer Prize in 2011, and he is one of two that serves as president of the Organization of American Historians, American Historical Association, and Society of American Historians. In his book, The Fiery Trial, American Lincoln and American Slavery, he focuses a lot on the thoughts that President Lincoln had during, or that he had on slavery. Um, it kind of goes over how President Lincoln's thoughts weren't necessarily black and white, where he was 100% against slavery, and how he kind of um, went against himself in some points, and it was kind of contradictory to some of his thoughts. Um, when it came to slavery. But ultimately, Abraham Lincoln felt that slavery was immoral and it needed to end. He also talks a little bit about how the abolitionists and their movements, and also about African Americans and how they played a role in the Civil War, and and their role that they played during to get emancipated. The other book that I wanted to go over was Abraham Lincoln, The War Years, Volume 1. This is a book by Carl Sandburg. A little bit about Carl Sandburg is that he was born in 1978 and lived till 1967. He was a poet, biographer, editor, and journalist. He won 3 Pulitzer Prizes, which is pretty cool. And from a young age, he admired the legacy of Abraham Lincoln, and so he spent 30 years collecting information and materials and began writing his 6 volume collection biography of President Lincoln. So, in his book, The War Years, he talks a little bit more about Abraham Lincoln's presidency and how it was during one of the most tumultuous times in American history. He highlights the decision making process and his efforts to balance military necessity with his commitment to ending slavery. And so in this book, he kind of goes over more about um, Abraham Lincoln and his military prowess and feats, and kind of um, what he was doing military wise and politically wise to end slavery. Some of the differences in the Fiery Trial, Forner he focuses more on Abraham Lincoln's feelings on slavery. He talks about the growth and change that Abraham Lincoln went through during his early years as a politician through the Civil War. It also talks about the societies and events that were going on in the world that helped to shape Abraham Lincoln's beliefs. In the war years, Sandberg, like we talked about, writes a little bit more and focuses on the challenges that Abraham Lincoln faced, both politically and also in the military. He also goes on to talk more about the style of leadership that Abraham Lincoln had, and his personal relationships with his fellows. So both of these books cover the same event, which is the presidency of Abraham Lincoln and how he fought to abolish slavery, but they focus on different things. Sandberg had a bigger focus on Abraham Lincoln's triumphs and military prowess, whereas Filner was more focused on what Lincoln was thinking during this time. Some of the reason why I think that these differences is probably because of the time difference, is my guess. Sandberg lived a lot closer time wise to Abraham Lincoln, and Abraham Lincoln was probably a huge thing. Well, he still is, but he was probably an even bigger deal during Sandberg's time, and it was just impressive what Abraham Lincoln was able to do to be able to emancipate African Americans from slavery. And so he obviously would focus more on his military triumphs and him being president. And I think that and Foner was not as close. He's more modern, and so I think a lot of what we focus on nowadays is the mental state and what people kind of are thinking and what leads them to do what they do. And so I think that's why Foner kind of focuses more on the thought process that Lincoln was going through and how society was shaping his beliefs and everything that kind of made Lincoln the person who he was based on his like mentality and stuff.